This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is your show for the week of February 17th, 2025. On the show, we've got construction updates, maybe. The villain show runtime fake out. Say that 10 times.
That's a
fast.
tongue twister, yeah.
Whew. The Disney response to the Wall Street Journal article that was in response to the Len Testa touring plans article. We'll go over all that weird stuff. Reminder for everybody, join our Discord server. Lots of engagement going on. A lot of vacations being planned right now, so hop in and ask questions or help Phil plan his vacation. However, if that's why you're going to Discord right now, you're a bit late because by the time this goes out, Phil is on his way to the airport.
Yeah, unless you're going to give me advice on real time or something.
That's right. You could tweet at him or blue sky at him. We still don't have a verb for that yet. And maybe you could change his mind. But we're going to go over some of your finalized plans and stuff like that. But first, a couple of quick things we want to go over. So I mentioned at the top, Walt Disney World the Disney company responded to the Wall Street Journal article about vacation costs. So if you remember last week, we talked about my own theory of Lightning Lane Premier Pass potentially replacing Lightning Lane Multipass when they finally kind of start tweaking, the crowd sizes and costs and all this other stuff, which took a lot of data and thought from Len Testa's article on touring plans. And his article wasn't really opinion. It was just like a data dump on, inflation rates and costs and all this other type of stuff.
And which areas have increased in pricing, which ones haven't as much and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. So based off that information, the Wall Street Journal, which Len Testa assisted with, put out a whole long article about the average middle class and it's not affordable anymore. And it was more of like an op-ed almost ish.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly an op-ed, but it was kind of more of an article, like a standard article, I guess. It wasn't newsy, it wasn't an opinion based, but so they kind of fleshed it out with like these interviews with people and all the type of things and kind of gave it like a human spin, whereas Len's article was more of like just data.
Yeah.
Right. So in this article, I just want to point out this. So they're saying, we have millions of guests coming in. They all love it. They all want to save. And of course, when you ask customers that go to the parks and have a good time, they're going to say that they really enjoyed it. And they're not really talking about the people that may potentially be priced out of it. But one thing stood out that I didn't even that I noticed right off the bat. And then Len brought it up on the forums. And I was like, this is absolutely bonkers. So this is a quote from the article that was quoting Disney. Or no, this is a quote from the article. Disney said that the touring plan's numbers for the cost of a typical 4-day visit were exaggerated and didn't take into account the range of value options available. I believe Len had it at about $3,800 for a base trip, not counting a variety of things. A 4-day trip for a family of 4 in the fall could cost as little as $3,026 before food and transportation costs, the company said. And guests don't need Lightning Lane passes to have a great time. So, Phil, when you saw that, what did you think right off the bat, immediately when you saw it?
Well, my immediate reaction was, I can't believe they actually responded to this. I think there's always these like pieces out there every so often, and they normally don't bother with it. I thought it was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And then for them to like make a big deal out of this with, I mean, obviously I'm not trying to like scoff at $800 or $600 or whatever it was, but it's not like he was saying it was $10,000 and they think it's $1,000. Like it was kind of still in the same ballpark. And for them to be like, we still got to cough up $3,000
for a 4-day trip.
And that's not even food. And you still got to get there. Like that's not, I don't think it had the impact they probably were going for.
So I mean, I don't know what they're pulling from, but essentially $3,026 is hotel and tickets for a 4-day trip.
In the fall, and it says could cost as little as this. Well, yeah, if you pick the cheapest dates and
week after Labor Day,
or whatever it is, where I think Len was trying to do more apples to apples, like kind of averaging type things. But yes, you could, stay at the cheapest options on the cheapest dates that, of course, most families can't go because their kids are in school and stuff like that. But
and of course, it's at the start of the school year where children aren't likely to skip school.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
starting. So I initially thought, like, I choked when I read this. I'm like, I mean, even if yes, you were right. I was surprised that they actually responded. But I think they needed to, because this is like the millionth article on the same thing at this point. Two, they actually gave a number, right? And just instead of saying, we disagree, I believe a family of four could have create enjoyable memories at Walt Disney World for far less than what Mr. Testa is putting out, right? You don't give a number, you don't set expectations, but they said $3,026, right? Now, Phil, do you think it was like $3,026.89 and you rounded down to 89 cents to make it even a bit cheaper? Like, it's in a spreadsheet somewhere. Because that's not even like a rounded number, like $3,100, $3,000, less than $3,200. It's $3,026 even. Yeah. Which is absolutely amazing. And of course, food for a family of four, a 4-day trip. So you're maybe looking at $200 a day on food. So that's another $1,600. You're looking for transportation. If they're flying there, that's probably another $1,200. So your typical 4-day trip for your family of four is going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000, depending on where you're flying and how much food that you like to eat. And that's incredibly unaffordable to a lot of middle class families, where they're spending $5,000 on a vacation. So I thought that was kind of. It
did remind me. I know everyone in that thread was like shocked that they put a number. It did kind of remind me back in the day. They used to have those commercials though, where a family was pricing out a trip, like the mom and dad at like the old computer, and they'd be like, "Oh, we could do the trip for $1,600 or whatever it was back then." It's like, we can do that. So I feel like they've put numbers out there before. I guess it's like you said, this one's very specific and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I feel like in the past they used to highlight like, here's a number that you could theoretically do a trip with that we think is reasonable. But I guess in this day and age, it's maybe not as reasonable as it used to be. And like you said, it's very specific.
See if we could dig up those commercials and find out what year it was, find out what percentage of the annual household income that was at that point. Percentage of compared to
this number. All right, I got a homework assignment. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's see if we can figure that while you're on your vacation, which is in 2 days. Yes, obviously we need this by next week. Some other things, like you bring this up quite a bit when you're talking on the forums or on social media, other places. And your question is: do Disney fans have an unrealistic expectation for what a Disney trip that a Disney trip can be affordable? Because I know growing up, I was on the lower end of middle class. I didn't know anybody that took Disney vacations. I know people that have gone to Disney, but it was like they visited their grandparents in Florida and spent a day at the Magic Kingdom type of thing. Right. That's what we did. I didn't know anybody that took Disney vacation. So do you think people now have unrealistic expectations?
Yeah, and I also did want to give credit. The Diz actually had an article out about this and kind of saying, like, everything's gone up in price. All, sporting events. I've been looking into concert prices have like doubled ridiculous. And stuff like that. So, but I don't know if it's just because Disney's so like Americana, or like that people grew up going and now they feel, I don't want to say entitled, but like that, like we want to keep doing what we were doing before and now we can't, and I think, I have some friends that came back recently and they have annual passes, they go all the time and stuff like that, but they're like, I don't know if we can keep doing it but when you get into the details, it's like, well, we like to stay at deluxe resorts and we used to get the fast pass for us free. Now we got to add, like, it was kind of like all these things. It's like, well, okay, you could still do Disney cheaper, but you can't do it the way you used to be able to do it. And I think that's kind of what's hitting people, and in some ways almost the same argument about the people that used to get DAS and now don't. It's like, I want to be able to do Disney how I used to do it. And they're making all these changes that are preventing it. So I think it's just, which is certainly frustrating. And when you have less excess income, because everything else is up prices, it's like you want to get the most out of it. And you're like, oh, let's just do our Disney vacation. And then you're like, wait, we can't afford it when we used to be able to afford it. It's very frustrating. So I get that. But at the same time, it's like, you don't necessarily have this intrinsic right to go to Disney. It's still a business. And like you said, a lot of, it's still probably a small fraction of the country that's actually been to Walt Disney World, right? It's just some of the people that used to be able to go now feel they can't.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of feeds into the narrative. And I mean, this is not a narrative, this is a truth, that, today's young adults or even 20-somethings are some of the first generations that don't have it as good as their parents did type of thing. Like there's that whole American dream that's kind of dwindling, where nostalgia for the past, nostalgia for Disney is incredibly powerful. And you just you kind of feel like, well, I used to be able to do it. I still have the same kind of job now. I'm not doing any worse. Why can't I afford it now? And it's just like, I want to go back to when we used to be able to afford it. And it's all Disney's fault. I'm like, well, the rest of the world, it's a little bit different now, unfortunately.
And the one thing I would add, though, is, and this is maybe a larger argument we could get to on another show, but like the idea of like, you know, Disney's always been fairly expensive, but I think most people that went, especially when you felt like more was included with what you got, you're like, look, it cost us a lot of money. We had to save up 3 years, but we had an amazing time. We, you know, everything was kind of upfront spending and that sort of thing. Whereas now it's like, okay, now we got to pay this. Oh, do we buy Lightning Lane? Do we not? Like it's just, now we got to pay for like transport from the hotel or from the airport. It's like, you feel like it's harder to pay the money. And then you're getting less for it. I think it's just harder to attract people that are going to have the same feelings for Disney that, like, I think a lot of us grew up with, or with our parents, or that we're imparting on our kids. That if, you know, other people and Disney needs to consider that, right? Like 20 years from now, are they going to have people coming back because of nostalgia and they want to bring their kids and stuff like that, if they're not enjoying it now as much as we did when we were younger?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point, and I'll leave it at this so we don't dive down the rabbit hole of this. It's Disney World could be like an entry level or poor man's version of like an all-inclusive fancy vacation, right?
Yeah.
So you see all, like, you can watch TV and find how wealthy people go on vacation with like butlers and private jets and all like this type of stuff, right? But for at least for the time period where people are remembering the good old times, like Magical Express time frame, right? They remember being able to get private transportation from the you know, provided transportation from the airport. Somebody took care of my bags. I got free magic bands to go all over the place. I got to schedule like all the stuff that we always talk about. That made people feel special, because that's not your average vacation, right? And It was still within the reach of a middle-class family to be able to go on this vacation. And, you know, it's a guy that's a blue-collar person or middle management, white-collar type of, and, you know, they're not making, no one's amazingly wealthy or just doing fine. If they don't go to Disney World, their vacation is maybe going to the beach or going to the lake, or I don't know, go driving somewhere in the woods and going camping, like typical American like type of vacations. There's no one there carrying their bags or driving them from the airport. So this was kind of like a nice little, I'm feeling like somebody's taking.
It felt like a little splurge that you could make work every couple years or whatever,
right? And
now you can't. Or even if you do that, like we're stretching ourselves to do this trip, it's not feeling as special. That's a good point.
And I agree with both sides. I think there's some truth on both sides of the argument. From Disney's point of view, about they're not too expensive because they're comparing it across a broad market of options, and other people that are truly legitimate should feel that they're missing out and they're being they're getting less for the money that they're spending, because they are. And the offerings are not as good as what they used to be, you know, comparative to technologies, right? That type of thing. So, I mean, everybody has a valid truth in here somewhere. So we'll see where it goes in the next 5 years. Who knows?
Yep.
Next one is Disney made a mistake by posting a website a little bit too early.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, they posted a splash screen for the new Villain show going on to Disney Hollywood Studios, and it had a runtime listed of 40 minutes. And of course, everybody started running with it. And I think it was Scott Gustin that first put out that that the runtime is incorrect and it's not 40 minutes. They didn't say how long it was going to be, but just that the 40 minutes was incorrect, and they took down the page. So,
and then I noticed, I think it was the next day, because this was, I think, Thursday, the day before Valentine's Day, which they were calling like Villain's-Time Day or whatever.
Oh, right, yes.
And then on Valentine's Day, they put up the page for the returning Little Mermaid show, and that one they very much did not list the runtime, so they definitely learned from their mistake.
So, I guess the question is, as funny as this is, would we want to see a 40-minute show, or do we?
That was a question I had. I was surprised how, and obviously we're in kind of a bubble, so I don't know if everybody felt this way, but from what I saw, it got people excited. They were like, "Oh my God, they're doing a 40-minute show. That's like that's like what you see on the cruise line and all this thing. This must be an amazing show." And part of me is like, that's a big chunk of your day if you're going to go to a 40-minute show, and it better be good if you're giving it like 40 minutes,
an hour and a half, right? You're waiting about a half hour to get in. 40 minutes, 10, 20 minutes to get out of there and
Yeah.
reassert yourself in the park. That's a big chunk.
Like,
But
so
I think it would have been great.
I think there's a reason that Disney's been moving kind of, shows that used to be 35 minutes are now 25 or 20 minutes or something like that. So it really surprised me because it just seemed very counter to what they were doing if this was true. But I also wasn't necessarily, and I will admit, I'm probably not as excited for the show as some other people are. So maybe they were just like, oh, this is the thing I'm really looking forward to. And they're giving us 40 minutes or whatever. Whereas for me, I'm like, maybe it'll be good. I'm like, but I don't know if I want to give up 40 minutes to find out. But it's interesting. I mean, but I guess it got people excited saying like, I think they want it to be good. And if Disney's going to make it 40 minutes, that means they're investing in it. Right. So
I think I read a post somewhere and I don't have the details. I should have copy pasted, but I don't know if they were an authority on the subject. So I'd really take it. So take this with a grain of salt. Essentially, the duration of a show dictates how many actors and actresses that you can have in a show from equity. So if you have a 40-minute show, you have to have a certain amount of backups so you could do the show throughout the day and 7 days a week. And with a 20-minute show, it's basically fills out they need less actors to maintain the show through a weekly process versus a 40-minute show where they need more. So it's the operational cost of the show is a lot higher with a 40-minute show. So I think that's why the shows are shorter, but also from a park ops, being able to flip a show.
Yeah, I think they want to cycle. They want to get
yeah.
like two shows in an hour or whatever it is, so that you get more people in and get to
there's
experience.
There's a lot of moving parts why things are certain ways, right? So there's not just one solution. Moving on. You posted something here that surprised me in the show notes. I didn't notice you do that. Epic Universe has attraction height restrictions.
Yeah, so Epic Universe, I believe they have speaking of the splash pages, I believe they now have them up for all 17 attractions that will be at Epic Universe. But I thought it was interesting to look at some of the height restrictions they have for a number of the rides. And I found them interesting because they're kind of either all like around 40 inches. So like the Curse of the Werewolf is 40, the Harry Potter ride is going to be 40. The Minecart Madness, the Mario Kart, they're both 40 inches. Or they're at 48 inches. So the big roller coaster that's in Celestial Park, Stardust Racers, that's 48. The Dragon Rally Racer is 48, and I believe it's the big ride in Dark Universe Monsters.
All the roller coasters are 48 inches, right?
Yeah. So except for the younger one in the How to Train Your Dragon area. Okay. But I was like, well, how does that compare? Because I remember when we went to Universal, my daughter, now this was several years ago, so she was smaller at the time, but she's like the thrill seeker, and she was like not happy that she didn't get to go on a number of the rides at Universal. So how does this compare? So I saw like Gringotts is 42 inches, Revenge of the Mummy is 48, Spider-Man is 40, but then they have like Doctor Doom Freefall is 52, Hagrid's is 48. So that's kind of a family-friendly coaster, and nothing at Epic Universe is going to be more than that. Velocicoaster is 51 and Hulk is 54. So even the like more extreme rides at Epic Universe seem to be kind of on the lower end compared to some of the other rides at Universal. So I think that's good. I think it's going to be more, well, they're still going to have some extreme rides. You got to be 48. That's obviously more than a lot of the Disney rides are either 40 or 44. But it's not quite as much as some of the rides in the other parks. So it does seem like they're trying to appeal to as broad a spectrum of people as possible.
In case you don't have kids out there, 48 inches is roughly around an 8-year-old child.
Yeah.
Right? 7, 8, 9, depending how fast.
Yeah. So my youngest one, so we went in 2015 or no, what was it? It was when the 51st. Whatever. It was a number of years ago, and she was too small, but she is 10 now, and she's 55 inches or 54 inches. So she'll be able to do everything now.
That's just some context there.
Yeah.
So nice little thing seeing where Epic Universe is getting closer and closer. I was looking at some of BioReconstruct's pictures of just like random shots. I was looking for a shot for a flyover of Magic Kingdom. So I re-scrolled through all of his stuff, and some of the newest things. The park does look ready to go. I was surprised that like they're removing, I guess from what I glanced at, because I haven't been staring at all the pictures every single day, is a lot of the walkways just had like cardboard on them or something else, so they don't get damaged with all the heavy equipment. And a lot of that's missing now, and it's just a lot of just scissor lifts, kind of doing last minute adjustments and stuff like that. And the park looks done. I mean, it's clean. The foliage is in, the shrubbery is in. It looks really good. It's just the water and the fountain are not running yet, so I guess we're waiting on that type of thing and going from there. But the park looks ready to go.
And the other thing was kind of a big thing this week. We're not obviously super Universal show, so we didn't really get into the details of it, but they released a lot of the food that's going to be in the number of places. So just maybe a quick shout out. Thrill Geek did a really good YouTube video where they kind of went item by item and like put up the picture of that item and talked about it and kind of said what they're excited for and stuff like that. So if you're into food, they have a lot of like highly themed food to the different areas. I thought they did a really good job with their video. So
before we get to your trip details coming up, we've started our family planning for our upcoming July trip.
Okay.
And so we're contemplating like what kind of food options are we going to use? Like, so, you know, I gave the kids, I've now labeled them. We talked about like blocks and stuff like that before. Like we're going to have each day is going to be like a choose your own adventure type of thing. So we're calling them achievements now. Like they're all into video games. So they have to unlock achievements throughout their trip. So for example, an achievement would be 4 parks in one day. It is tough to come up with a list with the kids because they don't understand what I mean by this. They're like, I want to rope drop Tron. Well, that's not really an achievement. That's just you getting up early and waiting in line. That's not, you know, it's not special. But like another achievement would be wake up before everybody else on a morning where we're sleeping in, rope drop Remy's, and come back with breakfast for the family. Like that's one achievement that we're gonna have. So we sat down, but then we got to the restaurant section of things, and basically the kids did some research, and now we have basically every restaurant on property on the list of things that we want to try. So we're gonna be watching a lot of videos and paring that down. But the interesting thing is my wife, who's never big sit down meal type of person, like every day. You know, she's getting like, maybe we do Cinderella's Royal Table one last time as the kids are younger. Maybe we do this one. Maybe we do. I'm like, a Disney dining plan upgrade might be in the works if it works out at that point. But
although you got to watch that because some of those are 2 credits, right, and stuff like that. So yeah, you definitely got.
Well, I mean, like for Cinderella's Royal Table, we'd end up using 3 credits to pay for half, and then cash for the rest type of thing. We do stuff like that, but there's going to be some math problems for me in the future. I don't suspect it will work out only because I'm the only one that will drink like a beer or something at lunch, and no one else will. And I've got 2 10-plus-year-olds that are definitely not economical on the
unless you pull off some of Matt's gaming things where he ordered like the breakfast and grabbed the beers and stuff like that. But then
that's only quick service stuff, though.
Yeah,
I want to do a dining plan, and I was explaining this to like my wife and my mother who were having a conversation. I was like, well, a cast member will come down and put a beer in front of you, and I could just take the beer and drink it, right? So I can have a second beer, and cast member won't care. They are definitely not putting a beer in front of my 10-year-old son that I can take and drink, because that's, you know, illegal, and they can get fired for doing that. So you get some wasted stuff there. So anyway, we did restaurants and stuff like that, and I figured now I have a lot of work ahead of me. That being said, your trip, you're leaving we're recording this on Sunday night. You're leaving in less than 48 hours at this point, right? So your flight's at what, 11 on Tuesday?
12:30 on
12:30.
Tuesday.
I knew it was around midday.
So right around noon on Tuesday. So yeah, about 36 hours away. So updates are, one thing my son wanted me to make clear, because we are flying down on his favorite airline. He said everybody needs to know that. And we are flying down on Breeze Airline. That's where we found the cheap rate out of one of our local airports. So he's probably more excited about the flight than anything else.
Okay.
The only other update is I was able to call and get a late checkout for our hotel, so we'll have a little bit more time.
Excellent.
On Thursday before we head out. We have also been talking about some of our food options and stuff like that. The 19th so that's the main day that we're down there. The day in the middle is my oldest daughter's actual birthday. It's her 16th birthday. So I know before I was like, well, maybe we'll just do pool time and stuff like that. My wife's kind of been like, no, we're going to Disney Springs. Like, we're doing stuff, and like, we're not just sitting around the pool. And so I was like, well, since it's your birthday, why don't you pick like where we go to eat? And so she was like, same thing like your kids. She was like researching all the food options and stuff like that, and just looking at pictures and stuff. And she comes back, she's like, I think I want to try this place called T-Rex Cafe. Oh. And I was just like, yeah, I basically internalized that noise. But I also was like, well, we could do that. Just keep in mind, she has some noise sensitivity issues to the point that like she's allowed to wear headphones at school, like doctor approved and stuff like that. I'm like, this is a very loud restaurant. I don't know if you're going to enjoy it. And so I was showing her.
The food's not great.
Yeah, I was like, and the food like isn't maybe the best where it's like worth like dealing with that and that sort of thing. It's kind of a fun setting and all that sort of stuff. So I was showing her some like videos and stuff, like food reviews, and you can't even hear the people talking about the food because it's like so loud in there. So she's like, all right, maybe that's not the best idea. So we're giving her other ideas and stuff like that. I think at this point we're leaning towards Summer House on the Lake.
Oh, very nice.
But we'll see, because we kind of figure that has like stuff everybody will eat and stuff like that.
I just remember reading your update earlier today about what your daughter picked. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to do it. I was like, just tell her that she's made a bad decision. Like, she's old enough now. She can take the criticism. Trust your father. Or I would say, you know what? I'm the dad. I have at least one veto.
One veto.
I'm using this on this. No T-Rex.
Why don't you tell me where else you'd like to eat?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of our plan. Like, we'll go there for lunch, hang out at Disney Springs and stuff like that, and then take a bus over to Caribbean Beach to eat at Banana Cabana, and then we will Skyliner over to Hollywood Studios to start
that's good.
the after
like
hours.
that.
So that's kind of the plan. We did ask, this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, I guess, to our DVC engagement. Did you have any tips and stuff? A few people came up with ideas. TL Madden had a few things. He was saying, like, don't bother swimming on that second day. And I was like, after that, I think, like I said, Judy was pushing for us to do the Disney Springs. And since we have the late checkout on the last day, we can go swimming then. A lot of people did question, about doing Fantasmic during the after hours and stuff like that. And I, normally I would fully agree with that, but it is my oldest, like, favorite. Like, that's her one thing she's definitely willing to sacrifice other rights. So that's why we'll be splitting up, I'm sure.
There's no wrong answer there.
So some people will be doing it and some people won't. Wheezy did raise, like, with the moving around and stuff like that, did you think about getting a car, like renting a car instead of using Uber all the places? And I did think about it, but once you start adding in, like, paying for parking at places, and then, like, I just laid out my day, like, well, we're going to go to Disney Springs and then go over to this place and then over to that place. Like, I don't want to get the car and move it around and stuff like that. I think it'll just be, I think it'll either break even or just be fine, easier using Uber and stuff like that. Mama Six asked about sneaking in brunch on the last day, and that was one of those things where I was like, well, can we fit in another, like, Disney meal and stuff like that, like Topolino's or something like that? But we are kind of trying to do this on the cheap, although I did see, like, right across from where our hotel is, there's like a all-day brunch place type thing, so maybe we'll do that instead of like right? So I mean, our hotel does come with complimentary breakfast, but maybe we'll do this before we head to the airport or something like that, so we'll maybe sneak that in. So last thing was, Wheezy asked, and I'll put together a spreadsheet to kind of say, like, well, what number of rides, how many were we hoping to get in versus what we actually do. I know, like, Rock and Roller Coaster is one we're going to want to try to do, at least for my younger daughter, more than once. I think Mickey and Minnie's will try to get in at least twice. And I know we want to do the Star Wars rides and Slinky Dog and Toy Story Mania. So that's probably it. So we'll see. I think we can fit all that in, but we'll see how it goes.
Wheezy is crazy just like I am. So I use, like, a note app on my phone, and I track, like, I get in line, I write 9:30 in line for a Rock and Roller Coaster, and then, like, 9:48 at the checkpoint, or then whatever time you get into the ride vehicle, and then when you leave, and so I can track, like, how often I go in and how fast and all this other stuff. I enjoy doing that. I don't know if you want to be doing that with.
I usually do.
I
kind of have, like, a running, like, almost like keeping track for a trip report. I don't know if I get into that much detail, like when I get in line, when I get on the ride, when I get off the ride, but I'll kind of be like, okay, well, we went to do this ride at this time, then we did this ride, kind of try to keep track about roughly what we did during the evening, and then keep track of what we did and how long things took, and maybe how long waits were and stuff.
The one thing I like to track is how long I waited in line. And, like, logistically speaking, like, if I want to do Tron, it's going to be like, you could get all this information from, like, Thrill Data, but, like, when I look back at my day, I'm like, wow, we did a lot. Like, how did we do that? You look back and you can see, like, boom, 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 boom. These are all the different things that you did. And I kind of like seeing, you get the 30,000 foot view when you kind of do your trip report type of thing. So I enjoyed that. Excuse me. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I never really talked to you about this before, is you made a comment. We were talking about hoppers versus non-hoppers or something, or Matt was potentially talking about adding, like, a fifth day to tickets and, like, the cost and how much it was to go from 4 to 5 tickets or whatever. Yeah. And then you said you don't remember the last time you did more than 4 park days on a vacation down there. And I was like, wow, that's absolutely right. And, like, either right after the pandemic or just before, you've said that you've only done like typically you would stay off site and you would do other Florida, Orlando based stuff and do some Disney. And I just want to, I don't know, like this is a bigger conversation to be had. And maybe we have time for it because we're at the 30-minute mark and we've got the construction updates to go, which would be a good 10, 15 minutes. So I think what you're missing out, Phil, because we talk about the vacation all the time, right? And for you, from your point of view, I can imagine like vacation might be harder because you only have one opportunity to get into these parks in your whole trip, right? So you feel pressured. Are you considering that the next time you do a big family vacation to Disney World, where it's like a week, to fill in every day to have like hoppers or something else like that? Because your daughter is turning 16. She's getting to the point where you might be able to trust her to go to a park all by herself within the next maybe 2 years. Like when she's 18, she's comfortable doing that, of course, right? That you really get more vacation than vacation if you go to a park knowing you're going to be there later in the week, or if you have hoppers, you can pick up some stuff in the middle of the day and the next day or something like that. What goes through your head when you start considering that type of thing?
I mean, a lot of it is just we haven't done big, long family vacations because we kind of figured just cost-wise, we'd rather go more frequently and for shorter periods of time. And part of it is just maybe that's my mentality about vacations. I don't like being away for more than a week and that sort of thing. To this day, whenever I take vacation, my mom still asks me, is your company okay with you taking this? I'm like, yes, we're allowed to take our vacation time. That's just kind of how it was drilled into me. But it did hit me that like, maybe that is something that we should do. And I don't know when the next big Disney vacation will be. But there is probably some benefit. And one of the reasons this came up was on Matt's podcast. He was talking about don't waste your arrival and departure days, add on the ticket day. And I'm like, that's a lot of money because I'm thinking in my head going from 4 days to add in a fifth day. And we usually it's tough to get out of the house and stuff like that. We're not going to get to, the earliest we're going to get to a park is maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock. I'm like, that's a lot of money to pay up. But if you're going from, and to his credit, I even looked up, priced out, like if we were doing like a full week, say in July, and we were already doing 5 days, to go from 5 days to 6 days would only be a total of $137 for my family.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot to add on. Even if we got there at 5 and saw the nighttime show and stuff like that, so I was kind of like, almost like, you kind of made me eat my words a little bit where I was at. Cause in my head, I was always like, we always did like 3 days or 4 days or got like the 4 park one day that were only $99 a day. Like, and so to go from that to a 5 days, a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're doing kind of 5 regular days, to add the 6 day wasn't. So it did make me think, cause I listened to a lot of these trip reports and they're like, okay, well, we know we're going to be back at Hollywood Studios 2 days later or something like that. So we'll hit that. And I'm like, well, we never do that. Like we have our 1 day and that's that because we'd like to do other things. But I don't know.
I remember all of your trip reports. Like you did one, I think it was 2 years ago, where we went to Magic Kingdom and you just basically did one circuit around and you didn't have Lightning Lane or Genie Plus at the time.
Right.
You were able to hit everything that you wanted to hit.
Yeah.
And that's great, but then like you still have that pressure, right?
Yeah.
But now you have the other pressure where like you do like the vacation, like where am I going to slot in my vacation time, and that defeats the purpose, right? So I think Matt's right. Like to me, like I don't really need to go into a park my day of. I enjoy the kind of ritual of like easing into it.
Yeah.
Like for our, and especially this year for our upcoming trip, we're driving down 2 days before our check-in, or we're going to start driving the evening 2 days before.
Right,
so
right.
We arrive in Orlando 24 hours before our check-in, and we're going to get a dummy hotel, and I can sleep for 10 hours after that long drive and be fresh. Right. But the day our check-in is, we're doing the water parks at that point, so we don't even need to consider that.
Yeah.
And then we have our last day, or is our last day's travel day. We're just getting into the car and driving home, right? At that point. But I bought 8 tickets. So every day of our trip, we have a park ticket that's a hopper. And I don't need to reiterate what my strategy is for this time, but like the idea of not having, because every single vacation with the family, I've had to do either reservations during the COVID time, or we had single park tickets that we had to choose what days we went where, right? Because we started doing fast passes and all that type of stuff. Now it's the first time I'm like, we're gonna quote unquote wing it. We're gonna have anchor points, right? We're gonna do we want to do like the Rhino stuff and stuff like that. In any case, I think if you unlock that possibility of planning in your head, because I think you've kind of like, this is how we do things, we're not changing that. Like the planning aspect, at least for you, I think would get more interesting because now you have all these different options on how you're going to do your vacation. And even if you do 4 tickets, upgrading them from single park tickets to hoppers is a total of $360 for your whole family. And now you have 4 days worth of hoppers, and then you get to really kind of jump around and have a good time. And, maybe your daughter, your oldest, and your wife want to go see Fantasmic at Hollywood Studios, but then you and your 2 little ones want to go see Happily Ever After or whatever. You guys can split up and go to different parks and kind of do things like that. So, whatever your next week-long vacation.
Yeah, we'll have to think about it because I don't know, like, especially now that my daughter's been working in the summer, like we just haven't had that much time to like do a bigger trip. But maybe in a couple of years, we'll have to, at some point. And now we've also been doing like, kind of just splitting up, and like I have the trip with just my youngest coming up, and then with just my wife, and so I don't know. We'll have to figure out. But I think it's definitely made me think that when we do the next big like kind of family trip, is not just do the kind of the 5, 7, 6 days with 4 park days, like maybe add on a little bit more and do the more park days. Because even though it makes the total number bigger and it makes it a little scarier, the per day becomes more cost effective. So.
Well, I mean, like for our Art of Animation stay, 6 people. So this is 6 people, 6 hoppers, rack rate, but quick service plan for free with all that.
Right.
It's like $11,000. That's a big chunk of money. I mean, my mother is paying for 3-ish that. So it's basically going to be another $8,000 vacation that typically our Disney vacations are between, well, now almost 7 because my youngest has tickets now, family of 5, but it's like 7 to 8 for the week and whatever. And this is going to be probably one of our last big Disney vacations, unless somehow I start making way, way, way more money type of thing. Where we might go back down to like 5 to 7 days, kind of maybe go more frequently, that type of thing. But we want to do one big vacation. Hopefully not our final one, but I'm kind of getting the sense like maybe we'll push Disney off until like Cars Lands opens.
That's kind of what I've been thinking was, right? And I feel like that's sort of the strategies I have to have is you either have to go like kind of for shorter period, like we're kind of saying, right? There's trade-offs, right? You can't do like the big full on 7-8 days every single year like you used to be able to. So we've kind of chosen to do more frequent but shorter ones, but maybe it is take a year off or something like that and then do a big one after that. So
I mean, I like the idea of the reason why I want to do a long vacation at Disney, because I want to get immersed in the bubble. I feel like when you have a 5 to 7 day trip with only 4 park tickets, you definitely get immersed. I'm not saying you don't, but like it's a sprint, and then when you finally catch your breath, it's over.
Yeah.
I want to try this is 1 day longer than our longest trip. I think back in 2019 when my mother came with us the last time, we went for 8 nights, 9 days. This is 9 days, 10 or 9 nights, 10 days. Which when I keep saying it and I look at it in the calendar, it's obscenely long, and I don't think I always in the back of my head it's like, what am I missing with work, that type of thing. But in any case, it should be fun. I think a good thing, exercise for you would be for some show in the next month or two, right? When we need some topics is to say, all right, Phil, how would you plan a 7-night stay, 7 nights, 8 days, like a Saturday to the following Sunday type of thing, trip with your family where you have a park ticket for every day that's not on the bookends, and what you think you could do, what your family would think you would want to do. I think that'd be interesting experience for you to say, like, actually put it into a spreadsheet and kind of figure out how you want to do that. So maybe we could do that later on. Any other trip details that are different from last week after you?
No, I think everything. Yeah, I think I covered all the differences. Everything else is still on. I guess one kind of fun thing was Mike, who's been on our show a couple times already. He's down there now, but they're taking a Disney cruise, but they went a few days ahead of time. They're not doing any parks, but they're staying kind of in the area, and so he's been he's like asking me advice, like, well, we were thinking about doing this. Like they kind of did the Disney Springs and take the boat up to Port Orleans, and they went over to Animal Kingdom Lodge to eat at Sanaa and stuff like that. So he's obviously been teasing me with sending me like the photos of the gates and stuff like that. But that definitely is getting me excited for my trip and stuff like that.
Nice. Okay, so construction updates. Again, this is our weekly updates on construction. I'm not putting things like I saw a construction update for Wilderness Lodge where they're like repainting the roofs and doing that. I'm not putting that type of stuff in here, but
Yeah. The only little one, which I don't know if we had in there, was they fixed. I don't know if did you see that they fixed this drip effect in the Tower of Terror queue.
no.
So there's apparently an effect that it was made to look like there was a leak in the ceiling, and there was a worker who left like a bucket out to collect the leak. And I guess the idea is like when the hotel was struck, like everyone disappeared or whatever, including a worker kind of mid work or whatever. And apparently the effect hasn't worked for 25 years, and they
Really?
just fixed it. It just started working today or yesterday.
No, I did not see that. I have to go take a look at
So
that.
I think that's
pretty
just an
crazy.
interesting one. It's just like another one of those where it seems like they're kind of getting to some of this maintenance and fixing things up when, there's not they're starting the big construction projects, but they're kind of like, what before they really got going on stuff, they're trying to fix up some things that hadn't worked in a while.
Like as they started like repairing like the chairs in Carousel of Progress,
Yeah.
or updating them, those type of things. Like we talked about this like a year ago. Like you could see them starting to spend money and kind of make up for like the 5 years of Chapek's time and the COVID time and stuff like that. Do you have a link for that? Maybe you put it in Discord and I'll add it to our construction update.
Yep. Okay.
But for one of the big things was there's a potential start date for Villains Land work on March 1st. So there is oh goodness, I can't remember the gentleman's name. It's Ken Pozek, I think is his name. He has a YouTube channel. He's an Orlando real estate agent, and he kind of talks about all kind of like Orlando construction, right? Not just theme parks, but like everything in Orlando. And it's an interesting podcast. But he brought up a listing for a construction bid that was labeled Magic Kingdom Villains Land, or Magic Kingdom Disney Magic Kingdom Expansion Villains Land. And then the bid notes mentioned that it covers 14 acres. And the start date was March 1st. So we've been saying for all along that construction is going to start, but it's going to start in the laydown yards, right? So everybody's saying, what is this 14 acres and whatever? I put out a graphic on social media yesterday, kind of just like highlighting everything. So as I was doing this, I kind of scrolled down one of the messages. You actually started doing this. I'm like, Phil's already on top of this, right? So if you basically take all the land that's tucked around in the back of Haunted Mansion, all the way down in all of Tom Sawyer's Island, my original picture did not include this, but it's all the rivers of America.
All the rivers of America include behind the show building for Haunted Mansion, and I think Small World too. But like, yep.
All the trees back there essentially, and that's about 14 acres. And that's about the size of Galaxy's Edge. And I have some information. I had it, and I don't have it in front of me. I think like Toy Story Land was like 11 or 12 acres. Pandora was about 12 acres. Yeah. Galaxy's Edge was similar to what we're looking at 14 acres.
About 14,
just with that. So then there are 3 laydown yards that were in permits that were released, in the fall of last year. And this is what's kind of hung up between the state and Disney. They're going back and forth. This is all for like laydown yards and water management. It's all one big permit.
It's all related to draining the rivers.
Right. So the river's going to go out. What are you going to do with all that water? What are you going to, because that's also drainage for when it rains, everything spills into the rivers of America and it's dissipated properly throughout the water management of Central Florida. So in order to do that, they're going back and forth. That permit has not been approved yet, and I think it's just everybody's like wondering about it. I think it's just normal permitting stuff at this point. So those for any construction to start, you need to bulldoze all these trees. This is going to be like just gravel yards to lay down equipment, materials, all sorts of different stuff. So to me, people were getting excited, like, oh, this might start in like the next month or so, and I don't think we'll see any boards going up around this area. I think we'll get an announcement of when these things are going to close several months off at the very least. But for just comparison's sake, so there is a space that's kind of beyond the tracks, kind of above, up and to the left of Big Thunder Mountain. That's about 11 acres. And then there's a strip of land that's kind of behind where like the Tiana building is and all the way down and kind of sticking out towards the monorail a little bit. That's 19 acres. And then there's another section of like triangle space that's on one side of Florida. What is the highway there?
It's like Florida Way. Florida Way, yeah.
Yeah, it's 13 acres. So there's a 11 acre, 19 acre, and a 13 acre plot that's going to be basically bulldozed and, ready for construction. I think we'll see some of that start for work before we actually see Rivers of America. But I think you can see Disney starting to get all their ducks in a row so that when they get their permits, they're off to the races, right? Yep. So take a look at that online. So there's things that are moving. We're seeing the permits, we're seeing bids going out, that sort of thing.
The only other thing with that I was going to mention was, I think it's interesting that the bid specifically said Villains Land, not like Cars Land and Villains Land, or just Magic Kingdom expansion. So I think that part got people excited, and it does make it feel like, especially if the 14 acres is the whole thing, that this is almost going to be viewed as one project, kind of, versus like we're doing Cars Land and then maybe we'll get to Villains Land at some point. Like I think it's kind of all going to be everything. It's everything.
Yep.
And then the other thing, the permits did specifically say that the land would house a roller coaster and an indoor ride.
That's true.
So,
yes.
Obviously that was kind of in the concept art and sort of along the lines of what everyone was expecting, but it's always nice to see things like that confirmed and stuff like that. So again, that also kind of makes it feel a little more real.
Because also another construction update for Magic Kingdom is more track is being delivered to Big Thunder Mountain. So somebody snapped a picture of a flatbed trailer that looks about maybe 50 feet along, of like a big giant segments of the track for Big Thunder. So this is obviously being housed off property somewhere, and that's being brought in. I don't think anybody expected all this track to be put into place this quickly. I think they expected, they do some cleaning up, we'll do this, and meander in April, we start seeing the track. It's like getting in there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the March, all the track is in there, and then they start working on bolting everything into place, redoing some of the rock work, and then all the details and stuff like that.
And then if they're doing any of the new effects or any other changes,
do we expect to see Big Thunder Mountain open up much sooner than we thought originally at this point?
I mean, it seems like it's going fast. The big question to me, though, is it being down, like, is part of that because they're going to be doing work on Villains Land and Cars Land? Like, it being down enables the access, or like basically are they doing other stuff while it's down? Because it seems like if it's just for the retrack, it's going really fast, and that's 18 months or whatever they were talking.
Yeah, I mean, here's another consideration for this. Can they do any construction on Cars Land, Villains Land if this is an active construction zone?
Right.
They might have they don't want to go around an active construction zone to start a new one. So maybe they need to finish this as fast as possible. And then once that construction, like crane work and all this other stuff that's done, then they can get the artists and the engineers in there to kind of do the effects, do like work that they don't need like a heavy crane for. So I think maybe they're fast tracking that stuff, so they don't need any perimeter work. They could
that's true,
be in there too. So that's something to consider as well. So we might see like the track go in, boom, 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 and then it's slow, and we don't hear anything, right? Because I think they might be rushing to get that in. Because I also read somewhere, things are just popping in my head now, that they ordered this track quite a while ago. So this track might have been sitting somewhere in a warehouse ready to go for quite some time, and they're like, let's just get it done.
That's true.
So something to consider. Big Thunder, and then in the Animal Kingdom. We just saw this today. Drew the Disney Dude tweeted it out. It was pictures by somebody else. I don't have it in front of me. Actually, I can open it up real quick. Care of Jerolom, Jerolom, with a bunch of letters and numbers. He took the shots, and it is the Chester Hester Dinorama sign has been bulldozed. So it's like the two smaller dinosaurs. This is not the big Brontosaurus type animal that's kind of stretching across. It's a sign for the carnival area. That's down. We can see bulldozers and other construction equipment now being moved in place now that the permits from last week, which is another update, there's final permitting green lights that went in this week. And also I just want to make a mention that the Maharaja Jungle Trek is down for refurb, and I made sure to check the end dates. It's just for a couple of weeks to be done by the end of March.
I think is that the one where they were talking about the bat cages, I think, were being worked on or something like that.
Yeah. So it's it'll be down for like 2 or 3 weeks essentially. So in Epcot, a couple of updates. We haven't had a lot of Epcot updates, but Mission Space, the TARP, there's a TARP up there. They're still working on that darn planet. So maybe they'll get done. Well, the one thing that I really liked was Test Track. There's a picture of Snap. They're putting fresh paint on the tracks. It actually looks really nice because that's always been kind of dingy a little bit the last couple of years. So all nice, fresh silver, steel kind of colored paint going up. Looks really nice and sharp. And I think that's all the construction updates that we have for this week, Phil. So a lot of movement. Tropical Americas, I think, is going to start fast to the point where everything is getting bulldozed, and then you're not going to be able to see anything until you see the building in the background start going up.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to do we want to do a before and after in honor of our friend Matt of when we will see our first crane in Animal Kingdom to start building that show building back there?
Oh, sure. We could do one. Let's see.
What would be okay? I'll give you the date. I say a crane in place, kind of like we saw at Magic Kingdom. I don't know if it's gonna be that big, but it will be. Let's say by 4th of July.
I will go after for a crane because I think there's still prep work and stuff before.
Okay, so for the next at least 6 months, you think, or at least so that would be 5 months from now. So 6 months from now, it's all next 6 months will be all groundwork and prep work.
I think so.
Okay, I think I kind of agree with you, but I think if they move quickly.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to know. There could be something that they need that for, or whatever. How the order they're doing things and stuff like that. But it feels like there'll be a lot of prep just with the base for it. Like a huge concrete slab, like they had to do for the Guardians building and stuff like that. So I would say after that, but maybe by September 1st, there's a crane.
Okay. I like that. Remind of our social media accounts out there, everybody: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel, and Blue Sky, all at the DBC Pod. I personally am very active on Blue Sky with my Disney stuff. Don't go on Twitter too much anymore. You can find me at what is my thing? How do you even say your it's at JD80 at Blue Sky.
Yeah,
social, whatever it is. Find me somewhere. You can search for DBC Pod. I'm on there. Our engagement for next week. Since we got an idea that Villains End is going to have a dark ride and it's going to have a roller coaster, what would be your ideal dark ride for Villains? Right? Is it going to be a storybook ride of a specific villain? Is it going to be a medley of villains? Is it going to be basically a dark ride version of the villain show that's coming out? What do you want to see? And I guess we have to talk about like what you want to see, and then you give me on a scale of 1 to 5, because Disney likes doing 1 to 5 on their surveys. What level of spookiness do you want to give it? Right. So let's put. What do you think? Tower of Terror being the spookiest, or do we give Tower of Terror as a 4 and we can have one level of spookiness above that?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Like, do you think it'll be even spookier?
For context, right?
Yeah.
And then the least spooky would be, I don't know, like a Mickey and Minnie's Halloween party.
I was gonna say like Winnie the Pooh, but you mean like some?
Pooh. Yeah, that's even better. I like that. Yes, Winnie the Pooh would be a 1, Terror would be 4, and 5 would be the spookiest thing Disney's ever done. So yeah, what would be your ideal order? Use your imagination. What do you want to see? Essentially, I don't know what I want to see, so I'm going to think about this while you are on vacation, and I'm being jealous of you this week. All right, Phil, do we have anything else we want to share this week? I think that might be it.
Nope, I think we hit on all of it. And yeah, I'll be like you mentioned about social media. I definitely will be tweeting some stuff out and Instagramming and Facebooking and stuff like that. Probably not constantly, but I'll try to, if there's a couple cool things happen, I will. I would
like you to document a little bit of the Muppets area when you get back there.
Yeah, I've been looking up. I want to make sure I remember like all like sort of the inside joke things they have in the pre-show and around the building and stuff like that. I'm going to try to document all that and stuff.
So like all the buildings, like the windows and stuff like that, I'd really like a side by side. I mean, I agree, everybody else is going to be doing this, but like for your own. Yeah. What I would do is I would take pictures of the windows, like the little things that they plus as they convert it to like Monsters Land and stuff like that. I think that'd be really fun. All right. That being said, everybody, thank you for watching and listening. If you're watching right now, please scroll down and hit the like button. We really appreciate it. Maybe wave at us in the comments. That's always fun. Have a great week, everybody. And Phil, have a great trip.
Yeah. And I guess next week we'll hopefully back to doing a live show. And I guess it'll be like a live trip report.
Maybe. Yes. How long is your trip report going to be?
I mean, it's only 2
5
days.
episodes? 4 episodes long?
2 episodes per day.
It's going to be a mega live show. It's going to be 5 hours long as we get through everything. All right, thank you for watching and listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.